So it is the central and distinguishing doctrine of Christianity that Christ died to save human beings from the human condition. And that is very hard to understand. So what is the human condition exactly? What is it? Well, surely it doesn't take a genius to notice that the human condition is marked by moral wrongdoing. If we look at the world around us, it is so sorrowful a spectacle. All the earth is soaked with the tears of the suffering, the weak and the vulnerable oppressed by the powerful and the strong, the children who are hurt, the beasts who are dealt with so cruelly, the poor who are forced into circumstances that make their lives a misery to them. That human beings are responsible for this is undeniable and sorrowful. That is our condition. It is a condition that prompts guilt. It is a condition that prompts shame. And so something about Christ dying, suffering and dying, is supposed to help with the problem of human guilt and shame, and with the terrible human proclivity to do those things that prompt guilt and shame. And truly, if you look at it, it is so hard to see how Christ dying on the cross could do anything about guilt and shame. How could it possibly help? So one standard answer in the history of Christianity has been something like this. What we need is a pardon. We need some way of being judged all right. We need forgiveness, something like that. We need a ticket to heaven. And God would be glad enough to give it to us, but His justice or His goodness or His honor forbid Him to give us a pardon when we are like this. And so something about what Christ does wins a pardon for us. That is one answer, but it's also an answer that is hard to understand and make sense out of. And that is because even if we have a pardon, the pardon will be given to us, and we will be the same wretches we were before we got the pardon. How on earth are we to be saved from our shame and guilt with forgiveness and a pardon? Something about us that is so lamentable needs to be changed. And thinking about how Christ's death on a cross could make us reconciled to God and altered in our own selves so that shame and guilt no longer mark our very character, but are replaced by something that we ourselves will be glad to be. How could Christ's death on the cross, how could Christ's life, passion, and death have anything to do with that? So sometimes people think to themselves, I don't need redemption. I don't need any help. I don't need any salvation. I'm happy, perfectly fine with the way things are. And I would say people can have that kind of attitude. They can have that sort of attitude sometimes when they are rich and shallow. But it won't last long, because even the rich and shallow can find what misery tastes like. But even ordinary people who get through their days as best they can with the limitations that they have from the vicissitudes of fortune, even ordinary people can think to themselves, I don't need anything else, I'm fine. I'm fine just the way I am, I'm okay. And I would say that down underneath that attitude that says, I'm okay, there is somewhere lurking down under there a power of frozen yearning, a power of tears that will find no expression, for the limitations of a small life, for the sorrows of humanity that are visible all around. There can come to human beings an acceptance of almost anything in a kind of apathy of misery, tolerant of suffering without any hope of anything better. But why would anyone want to settle for a life like that? So small. When there is a possibility of a life with beauty, a life with meaning, a life that soars. And that kind of life, which anyone would be glad to have, that kind of life is what the doctrine of the Atonement tries to point to as free and there for the having, for anyone who chooses. And that's what is wonderful about the doctrine of the Atonement.